Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. It is a wonderful day today. Sure is. Well, it is Thanksgiving, so first things first. Who am I thankful for? What am I thankful for? All that blah, blah, blah. Well, I'll do it because it's Thanksgiving. First, I am thankful for my parents for buying me food and making me food. And for giving birth to me and that stuff too, but mainly the food part. Second, friends. What would you do without friends? They give me food, so I'm thankful for that. And third, I am thankful for food, for being existent in this world. Yeah. And lastly, I am thankful for this book, To Kill a Mockingbird. To kill a mockingbird, to kill a mockingbird. I'm sorry. To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Well, actually, we read this in school, University High School. I'm a freshie. When I first picked up this book, I was kind of thinking, what is this old book? And then I kind of got confused for the first 10-ish chapters. So I had to reread and reread and reread. I did a lot of reading. And although this book may look thinner than the other books, it is actually a much harder book and it's a book that you really have to know every single word, every single sentence to understand the outcome of this book, which is someone dying. And I will tell you who that dying is later. And there are many, many, many characters in this book, probably over 30 or something. And that's a lot of characters for a book. And so I think it'll be easier if I just told you the main characters first and then slowly, kind of subtly introduced the minor characters as I go more in depth in the story. So to start off, the main characters, obviously Scout, Jem, Dill, I guess, and Atticus. Atticus Finch is a lawyer, probably the only unbiased, fair lawyer in Macomb. Now, what is Macomb? It is a very, very poor town. It's very poor. I would say it's dirty, but only some regions is dirty, where the Ewells live, and I'll talk about the Ewells later. There's so many Ewells. So let's go start with the Finches first. So Atticus Finch is the father. Their mother is gone, dead. I'm sorry. Yeah. And then there's Scout Finch and Jem Finch, not fish. Finch. I'm thinking about food right now. I'm thinking about the turkey I'm gonna eat later with all the gravy and mashed potatoes and cranberries. Anyways, back to the topic. Jem Finch. Jem is short for Jeremy, which you might think it's a weird abbreviation, but back in those old days when Harper Lee was younger, that's how they abbreviated Jeremy. So they just call him Jem throughout the entire book. Jem Finch. And then there's Scout. And she's a girl, believe it or not, because I have a guy friend named Scout. Yeah. Well, her name is not actually Scout. I will feel really bad for Scout if her name was actually Scout, and I'll kind of get mad at Atticus. I'm like, Atticus, why'd you name your daughter Scout? But no, her real name is more feminine, Jean Louise Finch. But then they just call her Scout throughout the whole book, which it actually doesn't explain why in the book. So I just kind of went with the flow. Scout Finch. It's much easier to say than Jean Louise Finch. Pretty sure she's not even tall enough for her name. So the several things I have recognized throughout this book is that Scout is very young. She's in first grade. She starts off the book in first grade and ends the book in third grade. Yet she's somehow fake married to Dill, who I'll talk about. And then she, this PG-rated 13 stuff she's doing when she's in first grade. What? But it was a long time ago, so let's let things just pass for now. So Dill, who is Dill? That's a really weird name. Dill pickle. Pickle Dill. Pickles, I like pickles. Dill, his actual name is Charles Baker Harris. It's a very long name. I don't know why they make such complicated names and then make it shorter. Why don't they just start off with short names so that they can make everyone's lives easier? Why not, Harper Lee? Bro, no. But it's Thanksgiving. So let's just thank the world and think that she made Charles's name Dill. So Dill and Scout are kind of like, I hate to say this, but they're like the lovers of the story because they're the only ones that actually interact with each other. That's a feminine and a male. So yeah. But I hope you realize that they're both in first grade and Dill is shorter than Scout. Yeah. So who is Dill? Well, does he have no family? Well, kind of. No, I'm kidding. He has a family. So he lives with his aunt in Maycomb. And then after, in the first chapters, it explains a lot about their history. So Dill first comes to Maycomb for a break, and then over the summer he goes back to his hometown of Meridian. Whatever. I suck at pronouncing. So he goes back and he comes back into Maycomb, and he's a major character, so you need to pay attention to it. Now, another major character is Boo Radley. And now what you're thinking, what is Harper Lee's problem? Why did she make these names so weird? Boo, Dill, Scout, what? For real. Boo Radley. His actual name is Arthur Radley, and actually this one explains why his name is Boo. So, well, not directly, but indirectly, you can probably figure it out. So Boo Radley is actually a man. He's a grown man from what you can predict in this book. He actually doesn't come out physically until the last 2 chapters. Or they say like in the middle because he does something, but you can't actually see him. Well, obviously the book, but you can't, he's not actually physically there until the last 2 chapters. There we go. So, who is Boo Radley? Why is he called Boo? Why does he have such a weird name? And then why do you feel so sorry for that guy? I actually do feel sorry for that guy. So, Boo Radley is a grown man who has been kept in his house for over 15 years by his cruel father. Well, at least that's what they say, that's what they all say. But towards the end of the book, you'll figure out the real reason why he was in that house. And he's called Boo because he is known for being very violent, very cruel, almost inhumane. And Scout, Dill, and Jem are the first ones to be curious as what he looks like, why he's in there, what's his problem, and how to help him. They're the first ones in Maycomb to really get the maturity, have a level of humanity to go and try to talk to Boo. Well, guess what? That does not work out well for them. Yep. So that is actually how this book starts. The end of chapter 1 says all 3 of them, Scout, Jem, and Dill, they go to Boo Radley's house and they try to peek in. He is kept sealed in there tightly like a piece of duct tape is put on over all of his house. Well, they see a slight shutter move. And guess what? That means really nothing. But it adds to the suspense, so therefore that's why Harper Lee put it in there. And one more thing I have to say about this book, To Kill a Mockingbird is a very nicely written book, as most people say it. Maybe it's because I'm too young, and then there are like 50-year-olds reading this book and understanding and thinking about their lives when they were like 7. Maybe that's why, because I was born in a world with technology and cute panda things. But I do not understand that there are no phones, there are no computers, there's no texting. Oh my gosh, OMG, there is no texting, there's no smartphones. They actually did have phones, but not smartphones. Like those really weird like dialing phones where like you have to like put your finger in the circle and then like go like this, and then like the thing you only see in those like 60s movies. I think my mom would understand. Yeah. Anyways, so that's a little thing I didn't get. I do recognize this book as a very neatly and well-written book, although it gets very confusing because of all the mystery and suspense that is embedded in here. tied up all with Radley, Scout, Jem, Dill, Atticus, and this other character that I have to explain to you, Tom Robinson. Before I talk about Tom Robinson, who actually has a real, legit name, let me talk about how this book is formatted. There are 2 parts. The first part is from chapter 1 to chapter 11, and that's, I would kind of say that's the intro of Scout, Dill, and Jem trying to go and see what Radley looks like. Part 2 is more really all about Atticus and Tom Robinson. And that's why Atticus is so important to the story, because he's the basis of the story. So part 2 is from chapter 12 to 31, as I remember. I'm young, so I should remember well, right? So I don't want to spend so much time on part 1, as I already spent quite a few minutes on part 1, so I will go right into part 2 and introduce several more characters. So actually, I forgot the real deal of the Finch house. Calpurnia. Who is Calpurnia? She is, I don't want to say this, but I have to be racist while explaining this book. I'm sorry for being racist on Thanksgiving. Thankful for all the races in this world. Just saying. Not a racist person. No. I have races of like all friends. I'm not kidding. Anyways, Calpurnia is a black woman, and she is the mother figure of the Finch house. Because Scout and Jem's mother died when they were quite young. Only Jem remembers, and Scout was probably not even born when she died. So Calpurnia has been the mother figure of them for years. 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 I'm thankful for years. But so why is so important that Calpurnia is a black woman? Because everyone in Maycomb, basically, that's important, or I wouldn't say important. The Finches are white. The Finches are white, pure American white. And then Calpurnia is a black woman who is actually in charge of Scout and Jem. Now, why is that such a big deal? It wouldn't be such a big deal now because of the civil rights movement that Martin Luther King Jr. has protested with. But before that, this was way before the Civil Rights Act. So before then, blacks were considered way inferior to whites, which is why this book is so important that you need to all read to understand the true history of black people and why it's so insulting and just ignorant when you say the N-word, which I'm not going to say because it's very ignorant and insulting. The N-I-G-G, either with the A or A-R or whatever. And I know that some black people say it now, but it's a very important thing that they probably don't even understand because they weren't born at that time. Now, how do I understand? Because I read books and my teachers tell me. But oh well. So Calpurnia is there. So she's part of the Finch family, I guess, but she has her own family. She just works in there as a maid while Atticus is out working as a lawyer. She just takes care of the house with Scout and Jem. Like I said, she is the mother of the house, the heart. Ow. Anyways, part 2, like I said, it's based on Atticus and Tom Robinson. Now, who is Tom Robinson? He's another black guy who is accused of raping a white girl. And that white girl who is supposedly raped is part of the Ewell family. Now, I'm going to introduce a lot of characters. It's going to get very confusing, but you'll understand once you read the book. Yeah. So the Ewell family is a disgrace to the Maycomb County. They have a lot of people in their family. Don't ask me why. I mean, I don't want to get into personal life. But the father is Bob Ewell. Bob. And then they have many children actually. But the only one that really matters is Burris and Mayella. Mayella is the white girl who is supposedly raped by Tom Robinson. Well, that's what she says, that's what Bob Ewell says, that's what everyone says, so let's just believe the white people. No, that's not how life works, but apparently it is in this book, which is very sad. I find that very sad. Anyways, Burris comes out in the first few chapters of the part 1 of being a very filthy and dirty little boy who doesn't shower and has lice, and his neck is gray and oh, I don't want to meet this guy. I'm so glad I wasn't born back then. Anyways, they're a very poor family, so they steal, and Bob Ewell, the father, actually has a job. It's just that he never spends it on his children. He spends it on alcohol, of course. The typical father figure drinks alcohol. So that's basically why the Ewell family is such a mess, because the father, all the money he earns is spent into his alcohol, not his children. So I wouldn't necessarily blame the children, but it is kind of their fault for not taking care of themselves. At least go to a pond and just like shower or something. But anyways, so Bob Ewell and Mayella Ewell are the two characters that are very important to the Ewell family. Mayella, the white girl that's accusedly raped, and Bob Ewell, who is putting the charge on Tom Robinson. Now, I hope that you realize that Bob Ewell is not a truly good father, I would say. He's not doing this for Mayella, he's doing this for him. If he wins, then Tom Robinson is going to go to jail, probably, possibly executed, because it was just how black and white people worked back then. So he just wants that to happen. He just wants to have his life completely stress-free with a bunch of alcohol in his hands. He's not doing this for his daughter, he's doing this for himself. And that's the part I kind of got confused with, like why is he like spending so much time with this if it's not for him? But yeah. And then mainly part 2 is, actually all but part 2 is about Tom Robinson's trial. So what actually happened during part 2? It's very, very confusing, which is mainly the part where I was like, this book is very weird. Probably need to reread it all over again. So I did. A lot of time, a lot of investment. That's why I'm here right now, telling you about this book so you don't have to go through as much trouble as I did. So part 2 is about Tom Robinson's trial. He got accused, and half of the chapters are about the testimonies in the trial. Now, there are no black lawyers. Obviously, if black people are discriminated, they don't have as good jobs as lawyers. So in the courtroom, the judge is white, all the lawyers are white, and then the testimonies are, of course, different from the witnesses and the accused and the accuser. So now you get a lot of sarcasm in these testimonies. If you look very closely, Mayella Ewell says something that contradicts her statement later on. And I don't think it was a rule back then, but it's a rule now in the courthouse that if you have to swear that you tell the truth when you're a witness. And if you change that, you get charged and you go to jail. That's the price of being a witness. That's why some people hesitate to be a witness. Like, why not just help? No, it's much more complicated than that. And it wasn't a rule then. So they were allowed to just change whatever they want. They could, Mayella could say, well, Tom was a very nice guy. And then the next testimony, she could say like, well, Tom he jumped on me and then he started touching me and then all that. And then she could change her answer, whatever she wants. And Tom Robinson is he's a very proud man. He's proud that he's black. He at least has dignity for a black guy. I would say he has more dignity and pride and that more than the Ewell family. More than Bob Ewell, who doesn't take care of his family and just lives for himself. So after all these testimonies are over, eventually Tom Robinson dies. And I'm not gonna tell you how he dies, why he dies, because that's the real juicy part. But I just want to, it just kept coming in my head. I need to read you this quote from Atticus. It's on the last page of part 1, and it's about courage. So let me just read it to you. I wanted you to see what real courage is, instead of getting the idea that courage is a man with a gun in his hand. It's when you know you're licked before you begin, but you begin anyways and you see it through no matter what. You rarely win, but sometimes you do. Now, what does this mean? What's this about being licked and licking lollipops? Yay. So this actually has a very deep meaning. I found this quote almost maybe my second favorite quote. My first one was about the Mockingbird. Yeah. So this is I'm going to explain this to you because it really has a deep meaning to it. So I wanted you to see what real courage is instead of getting the idea that courage is a man with a gun in his hand. So what is this talking about? It's talking about the two kinds of courage there is in all human beings. Physical courage, mental courage. A man with a gun in his hand, that's physical courage. Shooting someone is physical courage. Now, what's mental courage? It's fighting against yourself. Now courage doesn't have to always come through like scary situations like, oh my god, you're kidnapped and what do? Do you call your mom? Do you call the police? Do you just stay and die yourself? Well, what do? It can be embedded into anything, such as, I don't know, tests, high school, life. You walk into my 0 period bio class and then you have a test. Your mental courage tells you that you know that this test is going to be hard. But then you have to go through it anyways. Not because your mom tells you to, because that's just what it says inside. Maybe some people do it because their mom tells you to. I don't know. It's different for everyone. But it can be used in anything, and the reason why he says that it's not a man with a gun in his hand is because Atticus did actually have a gun in his hand and he shot a dog. I know you're like, oh my god, he shot a dog. Oh my god, my puppies. I need to put my puppies from Atticus now. But he had a very good reason. Heck, Tate, the sheriff, was too scared to do that. He didn't even have the physical courage or the mental courage to do that. So Atticus got up his physical courage. Now, usually what you would see in people and psychology is that when you act on physical courage, mental courage follows up. So you can't just decide, oh, I'm going to shoot this person, poof. Physical courage, done. No, you have to have some mental control before you go like, maybe I should shoot this guy because he didn't give me candy. Maybe I shouldn't because that's a little immoral. A little immoral, wow. But so it all ties up into this whole thing with Tom Robinson, which is why I explained this quote so deeply and spent so much time on it. Now I'm tired. I need to get going to eat my turkey. And then the second quote is, I'm not going to read it word for word because it comes out actually quite a few times. It's about Mockingbird and to kill a mockingbird. So there's just this one little short thing I want to read to you. It's in chapter 10. But remember, it's a sin to kill a mockingbird. Now, why is it a sin to kill a mockingbird? Because it explains in the quote, but I was too lazy to find it, kind of. So mockingbirds, what do they do to us? Nothing. What do we do to them? We kill them. Why is that a sin? Because they only give us good. They haven't harmed us in any way. They're not like woodpeckers who peck our wood. They're not like bees who some people have allergies and they sting us and then we get these huge bloated feet. Okay, they do nothing to us. They make us pure, sincere, good, beautiful music. And you're just gonna kill them. What did they do to you? Now that is tied up with Tom Robinson. What did Tom Robinson do to you? Why are you accusing him? Accusing Tom Robinson, killing Tom Robinson is the same as killing a mockingbird. Tom Robinson did everything for Myella Ewell as a good thing. He wanted to help her because he felt sorry for her. Now back then, they called it a sin to feel sorry for white people if you're black because you're black and you're right here while the white people are right here. Well, guess what? That is plain beep. And I don't want to say it, but it really is. It's not fair for the black people. Is it not true that we are all humans and we all have rights? It's true. And that's why, thank God, the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, and everything about racism and the Civil Rights Act has happened to prevent this racism, not only from black and white people. Now, this is only based on black and white people, but for Asians too. Asians, blacks, whites, when all those combined, there is not a single, there isn't 100% chance that every single time that group will be treated fairly. It happens everywhere, literally everywhere. You even see it now in current news, even after all those acts were passed for treating black people well, for giving them the same amount of rights as white people. All humans, all citizens are equal under the law. Even after that, there are white police officers shooting black men, shooting black people for shooting black children who they assume that they are doing something wrong. It's not that they actually did it. It's not that they actually stole a bike. It's not that they actually stole the money. It's just they look like it because they were running. Is it a sin to run? No, I'm pretty sure it's not, because then all the people on my cross-country team will be going to jail. No, it's not a sin. So why do these people do that? It's just how culture works, which is why this book is it teaches you such a good lesson about just being a human. Like, what is being a human? Why is everyone so embedded into this racism thing, especially the 8-push teacher at uni, Mr. Kessler. He's kind of scary. He's my advisement teacher. He is. He's a little crazy too. But he is very, very sincere about this whole racism thing, and he gives us current news every day, and it makes me feel so bad for the black people every single time he gives us a story. Well, I kind of drove away from, but anyways, eventually what happens in this book is Tom Robinson is shot 17 times, and it's very unfortunate that Tom Robinson just dies, but it is fortunate that Bob Ewell dies. So I'm going to explain the last 2 chapters because I just love it so much that Bob Ewell dies, because he was such a jerk to everyone, especially his family. So what happened was that Boo Radley finally came out of his house. Yeah, and he should be about Atticus's age right now, maybe a little younger, about 50, 60, because he was 33 when he was kept in the house, and then a lot more years have passed, so he should be pretty senile by now. Not that old, but pretty old, middle-aged. Yeah. And it just says he was very pale. Of course, he didn't get any sunlight. He was stayed in there, and then it explains that Boo Radley, Arthur Radley, did not stay in his house because his father kept him there. It's because he was shy. And for that reason, a lot of things happen mentally. And what happens is that Bob Ewell, he goes nuts after doing all this alcohol and drugs and whatnot, and he attacks Scout and Jem once, both of them, and then that's how Jem broke his elbow. And so what happens is that Boo Radley, he comes out to defend Scout and Jem because they were the only ones who actually tried to understand him. So he went out and he stabbed Bob Ewell with a knife. And the thing is that Heck Tate, the sheriff, he said that Boo wasn't the one who stabbed him, neither was Jem, because Atticus believed that Jem was the one who stabbed Bob Ewell. Even though it's his own son, he's a lawyer, so he's like, I will not conceal my son from this crime. So he kept believing it until Heck Tate finally convinced him that it was Bob Ewell who killed himself, who fell on his knife like that. Now, the truth is that Boo Radley killed him, and Heck Tate did not say that Boo Radley was the one who stabbed Bob Ewell because he was shy. He was shy. He didn't want the spotlight. Well, what would happen if Heck Tate said that Boo Radley was the one who killed Bob Ewell? Obviously, everyone would be happy for Boo Radley. They'll be like, oh my god, you're the best person ever. They'll all rush to his house. They'll start taking pictures, start asking questions, and that's too much for Boo Radley. And it's not because he's just a weird person. It's not because he's an introvert. It's just how this story works. And sometimes you just kind of have to go with the flow. So that's how the book ends. And I actually, for once, I like how a book ends. And this book, well, to tie it up, I've shouted quite a lot in this past few minutes. But this book teaches you a lot of lessons, especially about racism, courage, being human, just all these things, family, love, friends, the importance of them. So I felt like this was actually a pretty good time to go over this book because it teaches you all about these things, and it teaches you how thankful you should be that you weren't born in this time as a black person. How thankful you should be that you weren't, well, even though this is fiction, well, what if this was real life? Now, this isn't purely fiction. It is actually about half true. It's true that black people, they were too discriminated. oh my god, it was just too much. They were seriously discriminated and everything was against them. Even though they did the right thing, they did the wrong thing. If they did something good, it was the white people's advantage. If something bad happened to the world, they would blame it on the black people. Just be thankful that you weren't one of them, that you weren't born as a slave, that you're living in Irvine or Texas or California or whatever. Just be thankful that you're just living here and not getting so much discrimination as Tom Robinson did, who eventually died. You don't have a father that's like Bob Ewell, who only spends his money on alcohol and starves his children, doesn't let them sleep, doesn't let them eat, doesn't give them clothes, doesn't give them shelter. Just be thankful for all these little things that you think is too obvious, that it's really so important to this world. And actually, I'm pretty good at this. Great timing. So I really hope you read this book if you have not yet. And if you have read this book, I would suggest reading it again just for the sake of goodness. And I hope you have a great Thanksgiving. And I hope you at least tell someone or tell your parents, tell your mom that you're thankful, okay? Tell my brother, who really annoys me a lot, that I'm thankful. I probably won't say that. I'll say thanks to my mom. Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad. So, thanks, Harper Lee, for teaching us this wonderful lesson, and goodbye.